I'm afraid I have to start the show on a little bit of a sad note this morning. My wife told me yesterday that she met the grandmother of a little girl named Noelle Franklin who lives in Clayton, North Carolina. About 6 years ago, she had a bump on her leg and went to the doctor. And after some testing, it was determined that it was an aggressive form of cancer. So, after a leg amputation and having one of her lungs removed, being in the hospital for about a year, the cancer has returned and it doesn't look like there's much that can be done. So she's heading home to be with her family. Hospice is coming in to care for her and the family. And so I bring that up because you know, on the show, I often ask for prayer requests for you all to put prayer requests in the comments if there's something I can pray over for you. And I have this one that's on my heart that I wanted to share with you today. And whether you're religious or not, you know, we can pray for each other or we can encourage each other. I mean, before anything uh, else in life, we're people. We're walking through life together, and people are carrying difficult situations with them. Sometimes we don't even know about them, and it's more important than anything else for us to be there for each other and help each other through the situations that we face. And it's more important than weather. It's more important than anything else. We're supposed to love each other, and we're all made in the image of God. And no matter what our differences are, we can always come together over certain things. I can't imagine having a child for 7 years and then being on the precipice of not having them anymore after thinking about all the life that they were going to have and the plans that we were making for their life and all of that. I mean, I can imagine a little bit. We've got a special needs son, and when he was born, he had a hole in his heart, and we didn't know anything about that. We went through 9 months of everything thinking we're going to have a normal parenthood, and he was going to have a normal life, and it's far from that. It's been 20 years now, and things have not been anywhere even close to what you would consider normal. But that's just how things go. And he had a hole in his heart, and we had to have surgery. He had to have surgery on his heart at 6 weeks old. So after thinking through what his life was going to look like, he was born, and we had to deal with that, with a chance of him not coming through that surgery, and had to face that. Unfortunately, he did. And anyway, I can imagine a little bit about what they're going through, but in this case, it's far worse. And so there are always people out there that have more difficult situations than we do. And so I just wanted to share that this morning. That was on my heart, and we'll get to the weather here in a second, but whether we're religious people or not, we're still people, and we can be there for each other. And that's what I want us to do here as a community. So I'll put the link to the Facebook page in the description of the video. It's Noel Strong. If you get a chance, shoot him a quick note. Just let him know you're thinking about him, praying for him, whatever. So that's that. I just wanted to share that with you. Well, we do have some weather to talk about this morning. As you can see on the radar image on the screen, we've got some rain showers out there this morning, a little bit of snow flying up in the northeast, some fog. We'll look at all of that, including the severe weather threat for this afternoon and tomorrow. Snow is likely in the northeast over the weekend. We'll show you exactly who's going to see what and how much and when. We'll take a look at the weekend, so if you've got plans, you'll know how to prepare for those. And then we'll wrap it up with a look at the long range. Now, you are here for Cold Rain's Weather World, where we've got all the weather. And if you like what you see, give us a like. That'll help the algorithm understand people like the video and push it out to more people. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed, and hit the notifications bell. That'll turn on notifications when I drop a new video. And we do these about every day. And also leave a comment in the comment section, as I said before, a prayer request if there's something I can pray over, or if there is something on your mind, just leave that in the comments. I appreciate anything you have to say there. But as I said, it's the only internet weather show that leaves you more confident and smarter. And to that end, we're going to start with today's IQ question, our weather IQ question. And so this is about thunderstorms. And so here is the question. What does the term supercell refer to? A Category 5 hurricane, a massive high pressure system, an unusually large tornado, or a severe rotating thunderstorm? So those are your choices. If you know the answer, type it in the comments. If you don't, just stick around to the end of the show, and I will tell you exactly what the answer is. And also, I'll have all the segments of the show in the description, so you can skip where you need to get to. Now we're going to start with our satellite picture, and as you can see, we've got a trough in the east here, kind of shown by this little cloud configuration, but clouds streaming in from Minnesota all the way down over the deep south, where some of these clouds are producing rain showers, and a couple of rumbles of thunder. Had a little bit of thunder here in Morganton last night. Had some long rumbles of thunder, actually. Clouds up and down the East Coast. So it's going to be a cloudy, mostly cloudy day with potentially precipitation here on the East Coast. Another storm system's working into Canada, trailing clouds behind that are working into the West Coast, and additional activity is moving into the West Coast over the weekend. Looking at our radar image here, you can see the bulk of the heavier showers are moving out of the Raleigh area up through Roanoke Rapids into southern Virginia, Danville. You guys are seeing some rain approaching Richmond, Washington, D.C., back into Louisville. Towards Louisville, Kentucky, and over in just in southern Illinois, we're seeing some showers. Up here around the Great Lakes, we're seeing showers over here in Watertown, over toward Utica, Ithaca, up in Albany, maybe mixing with a little bit of snow. You can see on the radar here, there's a mix of rain and snow up in the northeast this morning. Temperatures are near freezing, so we're not seeing a lot, but could see some slick spots on the road. So that's what's going on radar-wise. Our hazards map is not really all that active. I hear a lot of people talking about, I watch a lot of other weather shows, and I hear these headlines: a rare pattern is setting up, it's going to change the weather drastically, or a strange weather pattern, or a weird. Folks, if there was a strange or rare weather pattern, this map would show you something other than fog and a couple of freeze warnings and a couple of red flag warnings, okay? So there's not a rare pattern setting up. This spring is normal. Spring is volatile weather. You're going to see shots of cool air, shots of warm air, precipitation, thunderstorms, snow. You're going to see a lot of that in the spring. This is only April the 11th. So there's nothing rare about this pattern. Normal, it's normal. Now, if your high is normally 60 and your low is normally 40, it's very unlikely you're going to have a high of exactly 60 and a low of 40. Normal is just an average of conditions over a period of time. And so that's what we're seeing. Spring is volatile. It goes up and down, up and down. That's what spring is. And so don't fall for it's rare, and there's none of that going on. It's a normal pattern. And so we're going to see normal weather for the most part. Okay. So that's what's going on here. We see red flag warnings up here today in North Dakota, Montana. Temperatures are warm. Humidity values are very low. Winds are going to gust 30 to 40. Red flag warnings down here in New Mexico and Arizona for tomorrow. Fog is everywhere up here, up and down the border of the Dakotas and Minnesota and Wisconsin. A little bit of fog in Alabama. And freeze warnings are back in the cards for portions of the Ohio Valley and Midwest here. So that's what's going on. Nothing to be too concerned about. Volcanic activity, nothing different than I showed you yesterday, so nothing new out there in the volcano world. No big earthquakes over the last 24 hours. Thank goodness. No tsunamis either, so we're not even going to look at that. Geomagnetic storm later today, possible into tomorrow. So full moon is out in the northern hemisphere, so you're going to be able to see, potentially see some auroras that may be muted a little bit with the bright moon in the higher latitudes. So that's what's going on with your weather roundup. Now, taking a look as we go into this afternoon of the weekend, we'll take a quick look here at how the surface map shakes out. Showers and thunderstorms. This is let's do this. Let me get on the current. Not sure why we're on an old version of that. That's weird. So showers and thunderstorms are out there this morning. That's going to continue to move up to the north as this low pressure gets organized. It's going to bring more showers and thunderstorms farther north up into the mid-Atlantic. Additional storms are going to fire this afternoon. We'll take a look at the severe threat, but you can see the model kind of showing some spotty activity over Tennessee into the Carolinas later this afternoon and evening. And that will all push off to the north and northeast tomorrow. Be a few showers back here in potentially into North Carolina. So even though this particular model is not showing that, be on guard for that tomorrow. It's not going to be completely clear until we get into Sunday. But it is going to be chillier. This activity will move off up into the northeast as we go through the course of Saturday afternoon. This is Saturday evening, and into Sunday you see rain continuing up here in Maine. So portions of the Northeast, unfortunately, look like you're going to stay wet and cloudy much of the weekend. This system kind of wraps up here and hangs out along the coast. The GFS is fairly similar in that you see it's showing a little bit more in the way of snow, and I think the European would too if it was on the right display. But anyway, we're looking at Sunday afternoon. Probably cloudy up here in the Northeast, and particularly up in Maine. over into New Hampshire, eastern New Hampshire, and eastern Massachusetts. You guys are going to pick up some rain through the weekend. Looking at the temperatures as we go through the weekend. So today, this afternoon, highs in the 40s up here in New England, up around the Great Lakes, 50s south of that up through Minnesota, and then 60s on the southern fringe of that, 60s and 70s all the way up into the Great Plains, even some 80s showing up here. So it's going to be much above normal this afternoon out in the plains, out west, the desert southwest. Some areas could approach 100 or exceed 100 out here, as we get toward Phoenix and places like that. So just Tucson, be aware that it's going to be hot if you're traveling out there. Florida, of course, in the 80s. Tonight, we get into low temperatures into the 20s and 30s up north where you see the purples. That's below freezing. And then as we get on down here into DC, we're looking at 45. Low to mid 40s here in the foothills of North and South Carolina. And then you get into toward Atlanta and over toward Fayetteville, Arkansas, you're in the 40s. South of that, you're in the 50s. In Texas, up into the plains, 40s and 50s, and then into the Cascades, looking very, very cold out there still. So chilly along the west coast. So those are your lows tonight. Kind of setting the stage up here in the Northeast for a little bit of snow as we get into Saturday. Saturday highs not getting out of the 30s in some spots up in the Northeast. Probably going to see some rain and snow mix up here. And then 50s still troughing in the east, so it's a little bit cooler, and that'll be in the cards for the next couple of days. A little warmer as you get to the southeast, and then really, really warm through the center of the country. So we're seeing that ridge really building in out west and in the center part of the country. So up through the plains, you're looking at 80s all the way up into South Dakota, 90s through Texas, the desert southwest, and again, kind of chilly 40s and 50s up in the Pacific Northwest for highs. And then as we get into Sunday, a similar sort of pattern, but it kind of the heat backs off a little bit out here in the plains. So we're seeing a little less of a push of reds all the way up into the Dakotas. Again, we're starting to see a little bit of a shot of cooler weather coming back in. Cool air still hanging on the northeast, warm across the south, and warming up a little bit out west. So that's your weekend forecast, folks. And hopefully that'll help you as you kind of understand what's going on. Most of the shower activity is going to be confined up across the northern tier of the country, maybe a little bit of clouds and shower activity as we get into Sunday evening here in Colorado. And the Pacific Northwest is always a little bit active, so you'll probably see some clouds and shower activity. Much of the center part of the country across the south will have a nice weekend, so you can get out and enjoy the heat, enjoy the afternoon. If you've got afternoon plans, you're going to be outside playing cornhole, cookout, whatever you're going to do. So that's what's going on there. So that brings us to today's Do You Know? And I've got a little interesting tidbit about blizzards in our Do You Know, sort of a fun fact here about blizzards. So we always think of blizzards as big snowstorms, heavy snow, piling up high, blowing snow, but it doesn't have to be snowing for you to have a blizzard. A blizzard warning can be issued when there are winds greater than 35 miles per hour and visibility is reduced to less than a quarter of a mile for at least 3 hours. So after the snow has fallen, you can still have blizzard warnings for blowing snow, and it's all up in the air. It's a lot of times you see that up in the north where it's really, really dry snow. In the south, the snow tends to get heavy. It's wetter, it contains a little bit more water, it's a little less the temperature profiles of the atmosphere make it more of a kind of a wet snow. And so you don't see that so much in the south. But up north, you see have dry snow, it piles up on the ground, it blows around a lot. So blizzards can exist even when snow is not falling. Now, quickly taking a look at our severe threat this afternoon, we're not seeing a widespread significant severe weather outbreak. We're looking at mainly scattered to isolated severe thunderstorms here in eastern North Carolina, eastern South Carolina, and down into Florida. This low pressure that we saw on the map earlier is getting its act together. There is a wind, essentially a jet streak in the mid levels of the atmosphere that's helping to provide some lift. There's a little bit of instability. We'll look at that. That's going to end up providing a decent atmosphere for a few thunderstorms with hail and potentially some wind gusts, but hail's kind of the main threat, I think, since the temperature profiles the atmosphere are very, very cold and freezing levels are fairly low, especially up in North Carolina here. So this is your threat for today. Tomorrow, we're looking at the Bighorns to the Black Hills, a little bit of a threat up here for some wind, potentially, you know, not really a hail threat or a tornado threat, just looking at a wind threat here if thunderstorms can exist. There'll be high base thunderstorms with low top, low cloud top. So not looking again at a big severe weather outbreak. And then for day 4, which is Monday, so nothing on Sunday too much. We've got a general thunderstorm activity area on Sunday, but day 4, looking at a potential for severe weather episode up here in Ohio, the Ohio Valley. So we'll get more into that as we get through the weekend, but that's your severe weather kind of outlook. Now, if we look at the jet stream, what I was showing you before, so this is the jet stream. You can see this big trough in the east. And as this jet streak comes around, the jet streak, by the way, is this streak here. This is what you see. So when you see this this afternoon, it kind of rounds the base of the trough. You get a little bit of lift out ahead of this. And so as you have some instability, a little bit of lift upstairs, you get these thunderstorms to fire off. So that's what's going on today. And then you get this other jet streak that's kind of working in tomorrow out here to Wyoming and to South Dakota. And so that's responsible for setting the stage for a little bit of isolated severe weather tomorrow. Cape this afternoon, our fuel for thunderstorms, not all that robust. You're starting to see some of those green colors show up down here in Georgia into South Carolina, but really the main focus is going to be along the eastern sections of North Carolina and into extreme northeast South Carolina as we get through the afternoon. So you can see the Cape start to fire up here. We're looking at anywhere between 2 and 700 joules of Cape per kilogram, and so that's modest Cape. It's not anything to write home about, but it's enough to get the job done if you've got enough wind shear, and we do. So some supercells could fire up and you get a little bit of rotation and you could get some hail. If we look at how this is going to play out this afternoon, the lightning map shows, a little bit of thunderstorm activity in Tennessee, down in Georgia. So the masters could see some thunderstorms later today. Just generally, we're not looking again at severe weather, but this is where the model wants to put the lightning. And so you see the lightning kind of move on off, and we're done with all of the severe weather threat across much of the South by the time we get into tomorrow morning. So that should all be out of our hair. Looking at the general wind field over the next few days, this is where our wind energy is going to be, mostly out west. So areas up here in North and South Dakota up into Montana could see wind gusts over the weekend, gusting into the 40s and maybe 50s. Same as you get into the plains, 30s mainly, and into the desert Southwest. So nothing too ridiculous like we saw a couple of weeks ago, but still windy conditions persist out there for the weekend. A little bit less windy on the East Coast, thank goodness. Now turning our attention up to the Northeast, this is where the snow threat is going to be this weekend. And so we're going to look at this. Let me make sure I'm on the right display, rain and snow frozen. This is how this system will play out as we get into this evening. This is Friday evening. About 9-10 o'clock. We see that rain shield continuing to lift northeast as this low pressure winds up here. Different models put this, show different snow amounts in different areas, but the footprint is generally the same. So we'll just if we take this at face value, we see a little mix of rain and snow. Temperatures are going to be right around freezing, a couple degrees either side. So we're not looking at a major snowstorm here. A lot of it's going to melt, but there's still going to be slick spots on the road, and conditions will deteriorate as snow falls, potentially heavy in some spots. And so we get into overnight hours as we approach 8 a.m., snowing from Scranton up to Albany to Springfield to Concord, working into Maine. And this just increases as we go north throughout the afternoon into the mid-afternoon hours, and then we get on into the evening hours and overnight on Sunday night, and we see a lot of that just sort of push out of the picture. So looking at how this looks from a temperature standpoint, temperatures are going to cool down through the course of the nighttime on Friday night as we get into tonight into Saturday morning. Look at these. You start to see little pockets of below freezing. Really cold up here in northern Maine, but no snow's falling up there yet. The snow would be back here where these little pockets of below freezing temperatures are. And we're not, again, this is right, 31, 32 degrees, 30. So not a ton of extremely cold air. This sort of cools, this evaporative cooling process will help to cool the air down itself, and then that will warm back up over the course of the afternoon Sunday, cool back down Sunday night as nocturnal cooling takes over and the system pulls away. And then everybody kind of warms up as we get on into Sunday afternoon, into Monday afternoon. We're done with everything, and all the snow should be melted. Looking at the snowfall totals here, European Ensemble does a pretty good job, and I think this is probably what we'll end up seeing, something along these lines. So, from Allentown potentially up into north of Portland and Bangor up toward Caribou, we're going to see a footprint of snow, maybe 1, 2, 3 inches. Some totals may be higher in spots where it comes down quickly enough and heavily enough, but a lot of it's going to melt on contact. So we could see some spots 4 to 6 inches maybe, but a general 1 to 3 inch footprint isn't out of the question. That's the European Ensemble. The European sort of matches that as well. The GFS is, of course, a little bit more robust. The GFS is always more robust. It wants to really snow hard and give you nice big snow totals. So I would cut those back significantly, but I wanted to show it to you. The NAM kind of does the same thing. You always get NAMmed with these snowstorms. NAM ought to put some of these maps on layaway, man. Nobody can afford these maps, man. We're going to have to rent these things for a while. Pay these down. Look at this, 7, 12 inches. It's not going to snow 12 inches. But in any event, this is what the NAM likes to show. And, save this for next winter, NAM. But our probability for 1 inch or more of snowfall, pretty high, again, from northeast Pennsylvania up to southeast Maine. Or southwest Maine rather. So big probabilities here. If we reduce that to 3 inches, you can see the probabilities kind of come down for that. So reds are 90 to 100%. So I would say 3 inches of snow is probably, if you're going to see it, it's a good bet kind of in this area where you see these reds, and then it starts to reduce outside of that. Now, looking ahead at our long range, just to give you an idea of where the pattern's going, we're looking at Monday morning here. This is 8 a.m. Monday morning East Coast time, and we've got a little bit of ridging here as denoted by these red colors. The blues are upper level. This is the upper levels at 500 millibars, about 20,000 feet, 18 to 20,000 feet up. And so oranges generally indicate ridges, blues indicate troughing. That's where you find warm and cold, right? So watch what happens. Monday should be a nice day for much of the south and the east, and then look what happens. Big push of cold air back into the picture. Potentially could see some freezing concerns as we head toward midweek, but Tuesday into Wednesday, that cool air just comes through. It gets reinforced again as we head toward Friday. A cold front will precede that, and so potentially some storms as we approach the weekend along the East Coast. That anomaly kind of sits through Sunday, and then look what happens. We start to see this orange pattern return to the eastern sections of the country. Little troughing out west, so it's going to be cooler out here as we get on in toward April the 24th, 25th, somewhere in that area as we get toward the end of the month. The GFS is similar to this, except it puts the core of this ridge back to the west. But if we see this, it's going to be very warm in the east as we get toward the end of April. Looking at our temperature anomalies, this sort of bears that out. These are reds are warmer than normal, much warmer than normal, and then blues and purples are much colder than normal. And you can see as we go through next Thursday, next Friday, next Saturday and Sunday, where's the blues? Over the east. Reds are over the central to the western part of the country, so that's where your cool and warm temperatures are going to be relative to normal. And then everybody gets into the oranges and yellows, and so a little bit above normal here in the east, cooling off out west. Precipitation, not very active pattern. We're going to see a few systems kind of roll through, bring some precipitation to a large part of the country, but not any of those massive storms like we've seen. It doesn't look like it right now anyway. So not a rare pattern, not a weird pattern. A big rare pattern would be a big 2011 tornado outbreak that happens once every 20, 40 years, or big snowstorm across the south. That's not a rare pattern what we're seeing. We're seeing kind of a normal pattern, up and down in terms of activity, and it's been oscillating through the spring. We've been active, and now we're going to be a little less active for a while, which is, good for a lot of people that have seen a lot of flooding. Looking at the Weather Prediction Center for the next, this is your 6 to 10 day outlook. Sort of, this bears out what we were talking about before. Going to be cooler in the east and a little warmer out west. Precipitation-wise, everybody's kind of near normal. Normal, see, not rare, normal. Below out here in the east or the west, and then a little bit above as we look at the northern tier. Running that out to the second week, so week 2, everybody kind of gets in on the above normal except for your northwest and northeast sections of the country. And even, look, Alaska below normal, Hawaii above normal, 8 to 10 days. Hawaii and Alaska above normal precipitation-wise. normal for the bulk of the country, except down here in the south, east, and the west coast as we get on out into week 2. And that, my friends, is your weather outlook for this Friday. And we're going to wrap it up with the answer to our trivia question, our weather IQ question. So what does the term supercell refer to? Category 5 hurricane, a massive high pressure system, an unusually large tornado, or a severe rotating thunderstorm? And the answer is a severe rotating thunderstorm. And I sort of gave it away when I said that the answer was about thunderstorms. So hopefully you caught that and got the right answer. It doesn't have to be severe, but a supercell is a rotating thunderstorm. Wind in severe weather episodes particularly, but in a lot of just thunderstorm cases, wind increases with height. That's sometimes a normal aspect of the atmosphere. And as it does so, the atmosphere has a tendency to roll this way. And so a thunderstorm comes along with this updraft. It sort of takes that rolling and turns it over. And now you have a vertically rotating column of air, and the updraft of the thunderstorm begins to rotate. And so supercell thunderstorms rotate, and that rotation tends to make the thunderstorm more intense, and you get potentially more in the way of dynamic weather with a supercell thunderstorm. Hail, large hail, and damaging winds, and potentially tornadoes if conditions are right. So that is a supercell thunderstorm. A regular thunderstorm may not have a rotating updraft, and a lot of times these regular thunderstorms will just pop up in the afternoon and then collapse on themselves. And so you see that as we get into the summertime. So anyway, that is the weather. Now you know thunderstorms, now you know the weather. And again, as always, this is Cold Rain reminding you that if other weather channels run 24/7, we got you covered 48/14 right here at Cold Rain's Weather World. Have a great Friday afternoon, folks, and a nice weekend, and we'll see you soon.